Was the 13th of August 2025. Had a nice afternoon here on the shooting range. Temperature is around 75 degrees. Humidity is down, which is a good thing. Been running pretty high lately. And we've got just a little bit of a wind. You can see the trees aren't moving too much, so should be an ideal day to do a little shooting. And I'll be shooting today, I believe, the lower gun here, which is Pietta's version or a copy of an 1860 Colt Army. The above one here is, again, it's a Pietta gun, and this one is their version of the 1858 Remington Army. So those are the two guns that we've got, but I believe I'll be shooting the bottom one here. I'll talk just a few minutes here about the two guns in case there's somebody out there that's maybe considering one or the other. The one that's probably given most of the credit for doing better accuracy would be the Remington, and a couple of reasons for that. One of them is it has a solid frame supporting the barrel and everything, where the barrel is kind of attached here with the Colt with a wedge, and then there's some pins in the bottom of this thing. So there might be a little more give in this one of fires than in the Remington. So that's, possibly one reason that the Remington might be a little more accurate. What I mean by accuracy, I'm talking about being able to shoot a smaller group size. As far as the accuracy where they're actually going to hit, that depends on how they're sighted. This is a fixed sighted gun. In other words, you cannot change the sights if your gun is shooting left or right or high or low. There's not really much you can do. As far as easy adjustments go, you can do some other things to it, but the same is kind of true with the Remingtons, especially the rear here. I haven't had my hands on an original Remington, but I think they may have a dovetail on their front sight which allows them to move left or right. And of course this one you can grind down some to change the height that it'll shoot at. I do know that the newer Uberities and I think the newer Piettas do have a dovetail on that front sight. It means you can slide it left or right a little bit to adjust what they call the windage. I've shot this 1860, Pietta's 1860 here, quite a bit the last couple days, and it seemed like it shoots pretty decent. In fact, I wanted to change the front sight a little bit so I could maybe even get it to shoot a little bit better. And of course it was shooting high like most of these Colts will do, so I added on to the front sight. Didn't do a perfect job on there, but I did make it a little bit higher, and that helped as far as the placement on the target goes. Also, I narrowed the sight up a little bit, gives me a little better sight picture, so I can do a little better work with it. The trigger pull is nothing to brag about on here. There's quite a bit of creep, but I want to see today just what kind of groups this thing is capable of doing to get some idea of whether or not it would be comparable to the Remington. We're not going to shoot the Remington today, but I've shot these things enough to kind of know what kind of grouping I can get from the Remingtons. So I want to find out what I can do with this this Colt 1860. So I'm not shooting the Remington 1858 today, but thought it might be interesting to go back and take a look at some of the targets here that are typical of the Remingtons. These were ones I shot back in 2021, a few years ago, and I probably shot better then, but here's a typical group that we're looking at. I think this one measures about 2.5 inches across for 6 shots, using the same round ball size and pretty much same powder charge, so everything, and lube as far as that goes, so everything's pretty much the same. And here's another group of targets shot that same year with the Remington. Turns out this one I actually made a video of. I think I was shooting round ball and some conicals, kind of comparing those. So here's a group with about 2.5 inch spread for 6 shots, probably 1.5 inches or less for 5. And again, similar situation here. Shooting the same load at that time as I am right now. Third target, and that's really nice, about 1.5 inches for 6 shots. And we got a fourth one here. Again, maybe 1.75 inches, 2 inches for 6. So the Remington is definitely a tough gun to compete with, but we'll see how our Colt will do. But there are a lot of books and videos that explain pretty well how to load these guns. I'll just quickly go through the method that I've been using. Well, the simplest method here would be just to put our powder, first of all, in each of the chambers that we're going to shoot. Go all the way around, all either 5 or 6, and I usually shoot 6. I'm not in competition here. So anyway, I do load 6, but the simplest way I say just to put powder in, and then we'll use our loading lever here to ram a ball down on top of that, and you'll do that for either the 5 or the 6 chambers. When you're done with that, you're going to put your caps, percussion caps here on each one of the nipples that are going to be fired, and then basically you're ready to shoot. Now that's just a real quick overview of it. I say that's not the method that I use. What I'll do is I'll put the powder down first, of course, and I'll follow it with a ball, the same as the simple method is. But then after that, I'll end up putting some of my homebrew lube here on the end of the chambers. And I've got several reasons for doing that, and I've got some videos out there that kind of explain that. But real quickly, one of them is I keep my fouling, that's the buildup in the barrel, keep that kind of softer, so every additional shot tends to push that out. Another reason is in case of a possible chain fire, you can read about those things. This might give us some extra protection if we have something between the powder, something more than just the ball between the that and the powder. So a couple of reasons here. Should mention that if you shoot without any of the lubrication system here, or with some folks will put after the powder they'll put a wad down in there and then put the ball on top of that. But if you're shooting a lot, especially with no other lubrication, black powder is different than smokeless that way. It'll build up what we call a fouling or a coating inside the barrel, and that after a number of shots, maybe I don't know how many it is, 8, 10, 12 shots or so, it tends to, I think, raise heck with the accuracy. But that's just an opinion I've got, and certainly after shooting a large number of these things, this barrel gets awful dirty. That stuff just cakes on there. So anyway, that's kind of a quick overview of the way I'm going to be loading the gun today. When I load the cylinder out of the gun, I have a press over here that I shove the raw balls down with, and that's kind of what it looks like after I'm done with the lubing. I'll put the cylinder back in the gun then and cap it up. There, the 1860 is capped up. We've got our hammer sitting on a safety pin. It's been about an hour since I posted the target, or set my target up down there. Just doing the videos and getting set up for this. I'll take my hat off to folks that aren't on a kind of a private range like I've got here. Somebody has to go to a public range and do all the setup and stuff. It's tough. So okay, I believe that's 6. Well, here's a close look at the first target. I believe this is my first shot. Otherwise, I think there's 3 in here. Unless there's a double up here, I have to check the camera and see. But 5 shots in the section here. I suppose about 1.25 inches, and yeah, somewhere's in there. So that's really decent, I think, for the. I couldn't do any better with that on the average with the Remington. So we'll load up 6 more and see how it does on the next 6. Well, before I load that up a second time, I want to make a comment that between shots number 1 and 2, after the first shot, the cap did end up right down in here where my thumb is, and it wedges between the hammer and the back of the frame here. So when the hammer falls down, it can't go far enough because that cap is in there. That used percussion cap is in there. Can't quite go far enough down to set the next shot off. So something to be aware of is that you can have some issues here. Some folks will, after every shot, after they cock their gun back or something, then will flip it like this to make sure the caps get out of there. But I think that's kind of a bad habit. Anytime you move your gun around when it's ready to rock is probably not a good thing. So I don't pay any attention to where my sprue cutoff is on those things. I just flip the round balls on top of the chambers here, and then I'll shove those down. For a while I did used to try to make sure that sprue cutoff thing was directly on the top and center and all that good stuff, but I found out that the number, it really doesn't seem to me to make any difference where that thing is. With one exception is if it's on the side down here like this, You're not using something to protect a possible flash from getting down into that powder. There would be a slight crevice there that flash could get down in. Now I'm using lube on top of these things, so I'm not too concerned about that problem. Okay, we're capped up, ready for a second string of 6 here. You know, one reason I'm not comparing this directly to the Remingtons is, I mean, that last target I shot was really nice, but what if it was lucky, and if you shoot 8 or 10 shots with each gun and then jump to some kind of a conclusion about which gun is shooting better, after that it just, I feel it's not realistic. I mean, if you shoot 50 shots with each one, and then you can compare targets and all that good stuff, I think you might get a better idea, but not just with half a dozen or a dozen shots, sometimes like I've seen done. So anyway, we'll shoot the second string here, and if I can get anywhere near close to what I did on first string, I'll be happy. Let's take a look here, see where that, now there, that cap is, I can see that one right there, so I can get something in. Now that definitely either got pulled back, the hammer will fly back some when the shot goes off. It has to, in order for that cap to get wedged underneath there like it is. Now if you're at a range someplace and this happens, you get your jackknife out, if you got one or something, to get that cap that's in there out. Of course, you got to be careful when you're doing that. Well, there it comes. That one is stuck in there pretty decent. And this is the one we're talking about right here. Now, there's ways of getting your gun set up so that doesn't happen to you, but we're not going through that right now. Other thing I'll notice is if I cock my gun back slow, sometimes the cylinder does not quite, like right there, I need to tweak it just a little bit to get it to lock in on the bolt, on the lock down below. So that's something I got to deal with on this gun, and maybe I'll make a video on it when I do that. Alright, let's see how far off number 2 can go. First shot's kind of like, I kind of like what our first one is. Well, there was 6. I don't think that's looking too bad for not being a Remington. Okay, so looking at the targets, here's our first target. I think I can fairly see I should be able to cover that one up. I mean, first shot, falling shot, excuses, and whatever. So we're looking at 5 shots over here, about 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches, 20 yards, and that's respectable. I'm not expecting to do any better with my 1858 Remington. It's got a little better trigger pull. This thing is a tad creepy, but I'm not complaining. So our second target over here, very similar. My group is definitely to the right. I mean, I've got four shots here to the right and 5 over here. So I could adjust that a little bit, but that's not going to be an easy job because you bend that too much, it's going to flop out of there. I suppose I could widen that rear sight out a little bit with things we could do, but we might just leave things the way they are. So anyway, after 12 shots, I have no flyers out here that I'm aware of, so I'm going to now take a look down that barrel and see what I see for fouling. And there's definitely going to be some blackness in there, but how much? And if you check out, I think, some other videos I have made or I'm going to make, you'll kind of compare what that looks like to a barrel that has not been using lube on the end of the chambers. And just to kind of verify that this lube in there might be softening things up, I'm going to push some dry patches through there and see if I can get that cleaned out without having to use any solvents. Well, there's our first patch that we pushed through. You can tell when you push a patch through there if you're feeling kind of a raspy sandpaper-ish feeling as that shoves through there, or does just kind of slide on through like this one did. And this one brought out quite a bit of fouling with it. We'll follow that up with 2 or 3 more patches. Alright, there's our fourth patch. I'm still seeing a little bit of black stuff coming out along the edges of the riflings there, and the grooves and stuff, but basically she's, I can get her adjusted here right. She's pretty decent, pretty shiny in there. The previous owner, I think, didn't do quite as good a job on cleaning as he maybe should have, because I spotted some rust here in the first inch or so of the barrel along the lands and the grooves, and I think that's probably where that fouling tends to hang up in there. It's not totally smooth, so it doesn't push out. Otherwise, the rest of the barrel up there is looking pretty good. So I see this gun does pretty well against paper targets. Black on white's always easier to see your sighting system than when you're actually shooting at something different. So what we're going to do is fill up some of these pop cans here with water, set them down there at the 21-yard mark, and see how our sighting system works and the gun works on those. Well, I'm not brave enough to shoot that one that's moving. Now hold on there, partner. It ain't over till it's over. Let's get the coroner's report down here. 'Cause I'm seeing a shot. Remember, this gun shoots a tad to the right. I should have used some Kentucky windage. I'm seeing a hole right there in that pink boy. Of course, the one that destroyed him is right here. So, hey, I'm not sure we can call that a kill, but we can certainly call it a hit. Be nice if it was down here though. And the way we keep our range location here a secret is we got a policy. No survivors. Okay, as far as conclusion goes, I'm really happy with the way this 1860 is shooting. I don't think I could shoot any better with my Remingtons. Maybe we just got lucky on 12 shots, but I've shot this gun in the past here over the last few days, and it seems to have some pretty good capabilities. One thing I think, maybe it's just the gun, too, but maybe that front sight modification that I made is helping. At least for me, it's a better sighting system. Other thing, of course, is you want to get a load that works well, and I think I pretty well developed that. So, yeah, with that, I had a good time shooting this thing, and hopefully somebody will find some of the information here useful.